What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? So today I'm going to be reviewing The Killer, which is directed by David Fincher and starring Michael Fassbender. So The Killer is a film that I've been looking forward to for at least 2 years now for obvious reasons. David Fincher is an excellent director and Michael Fassbender is an excellent actor. And it's actually on Netflix right now, so if you want to check it out, please do that. It just dropped yesterday. I watched it yesterday, but I allowed myself at least a day to reflect on it before giving you my thoughts on this film. Um, so I'm just gonna cut right to the chase and tell you guys that it's a pretty good movie. I enjoyed this film quite a bit, and I enjoyed it essentially because of David Fincher's direction and Michael Fassbender's performance, and somewhat of the writing. And I'll get to that a little bit later in this review. But for me, this movie really works because of how David Fincher is able to present this very linear story and how Michael Fassbender embodies and embraces this type of character. Because this film ultimately is an incredibly simple film, especially for David Fincher. Honestly, probably one of the simplest films I've ever seen him create. Um, and I think it works really well because he's able to make this an incredibly intense and engaging film. And it's engaging again because of how well David Fincher is able to direct and present character interactions, present action sequences, and just suspenseful sequences in general. I mean, the opening scene to this film, I think, just really hooks you and just gets you absorbed into what this film is going for. And even though this is a really simple film, it does do a pretty good job at times, kind of subverting your expectation and giving you something that you're not quite used to seeing with these types of films. Um, and yeah, like again, like really the biggest compliment I can give this film is that when it comes to building suspense and when it comes to even like portraying violent sequences, he's able to make it very engaging and really entertaining and just kept my attention the entire film. Um, I mean, throughout each sequence, despite this film not having really a sense of ethos, really having something emotional to really grab onto, um, he's still really, in a way, able to maintain my engagement. By the way, I don't know if ethos is the correct thing. It might have been pathos. I don't fucking know. I'm just trying to be smart for a second. Um, but yeah, this film doesn't really have the most compelling emotional resonant to it. And really that's kind of my biggest criticism, but I'll get to more. I'll dive a little bit deeper into that later. But despite that being the case, I'm still quite impressed that David Fincher was still able to keep me interested and kind of again keep me engaged with the material, because this film, in my opinion, really is about the character interactions, and it's about how well David Fincher is able to kind of encapsulate suspense in the best way possible. Because that is what personally kept me going. Because to be honest, I didn't really care that much about Michael Fassbender's character. I mean, this film is essentially more of a character study than anything. Um, but it's not the most complex character study. I mean, it's interesting at times, but it's not something that's gonna it's not gonna provoke a lot of discussion, in my opinion. So essentially, what makes this film engaging is not necessary. I mean, yeah, the character has something to do with it, but for me, it's definitely just David Fincher's ability to make elements of this film suspenseful and effective. Um, and again, with the character interactions as well, because Fassbender's character, I don't really mean to say this to come off like as too much of an insult, but he is a very like simple type of like, I mean, he's basically a hitman character in this film, but he doesn't offer that much complexity in relationship to other characters like this that we've seen in other films. Um, but the performance itself is impressive and engaging enough to have me engaged through his performance and through the presentation of the film. Um, and that is, to me, the most impressive element of it, is that despite me not necessarily being all that invested into Michael Fassbender as a character or really his motive, I still found myself engaged from scene to scene. But yeah, now that I've kind of like hinted at some of the criticisms, I might as well just kind of dive into that. So the thing is with this film, I feel like by design, Fincher didn't really want to focus too much on the emotional elements, because this is essentially like a revenge tale. This is like a simple revenge tale where something happens, after the first 15 minutes of the film, and it sparks the trajectory path, this very linear trajectory of Michael Fassbender's character throughout the entire film. And it's supposed to serve as almost like, in my opinion, kind of like an ironic spin on his own philosophy and kind of his own manifesto, because throughout the film we get a lot of this voiceover narration like of his inner thoughts, and I think it actually works well. There are some times where it gets a little bit repetitive and it's like, all right, we get it. um, uh, Empathy is weakness, and weakness is vulnerability. He says it, like, I swear to God, like 4 or 5 times in this movie. But I can, even though I wasn't a fan of every single time it got brought back up, I understand why David Fincher went that route. But it's supposed to serve as kind of like an ironic, like subversive take on his own philosophy, because again, throughout the entire film, he talks about how, very like narcissistic philosophies about how, always think about what's in it for me. And again, no empathy, never think about, never, give your victim the benefit of the doubt, because it always come back and bite you in the ass. Don't ever think emotionally about anything. Just keep your eye on the prize and do the job that you're paid to do, kind of thing. But his whole motive throughout this film is driven purely through emotion. Like, he doesn't have to do really anything that he's doing in this film, but it's all just emotionally driven because of something that happened to him. And again, I'm trying to talk about this film without spoiling really the actual details of it, but I'll just say, like, the film doesn't give you much emotional resonance to care about his journey. I mean, there's something there on the surface, but by design, Fincher just decided not to focus too much on, building this relationship that he's deeply affected by that sends him on this revenge path. It's kind of just glossed over really quick, and we're just kind of supposed to be on board with Michael Fassbender's, revenge adventure. But it hits a point to where I feel like, how much am I expected to really care about his character? Because it comes to the point where it's like, I don't care what the outcome is. I don't care what happens to his character. He could die in the next scene and I probably won't feel anything. I mean, he's a really cool character, and that's what kind of keeps my engagement, because of his performance and, again, because of Fincher's ability to present suspense. But like, in terms of me giving a shit if he lives or dies, like, I really did not care. And even his motive for revenge, I didn't care, because we didn't really spend a lot of time getting emotionally invested in that element, like, at all. So that's one of my bigger criticisms of the film. And also, there is a lot of obvious product placement here in this movie. And sometimes, it's valid because it does, like, this is a very contemporary film. It's a very modern film. It touches, it's very overt with it taking place in the modern era. Like, it name drops, like, a lot of stuff, that we living now will obviously know about, like Airbnbs, and mentioning, I guess it's more or less like just talking about, I mean, even things like McDonald's and Amazon and things like that are like very overtly in your face. Kind of lost my track there. I apologize, but just things like obvious products. Like, there's a scene where he's taking pain meds, and it just zooms in on a bottle of Advil, and it just seems like what was really the point of showing that product. Sometimes you get it because again, like him receiving a package from Amazon and figuring out like how to dispose of it, kind of thing. Like I guess you can make up for that. Um, but overall, it does seem like obvious that these are there just for like sponsorships. It's not really for anything else. So to me, that was also like distracting when watching the film, because that's where I saw McDonald's, I saw Starbucks, I saw Hertz, again Amazon, Advil, and I mean he even talks about McDonald's as like a center point of his character. So I mean, yeah. So that's not something that just I feel like it was hard to shake when I was watching it. And also I wasn't really a fan of the ending. The ending of this movie just felt underwhelming. And I don't even mean like the actual like quote unquote, I don't want to call it a boss battle because it wasn't, it's almost like a subversion of the boss battle at the very end. But it that's not really what I'm talking about. I just mean like the very like just the way that this film ended, like this just the way that this film chooses to end, and like its ending shot and everything like that. It just felt just flat and not very compelling. Um, so I mean, yeah, those were things that kind of bother me about the movie and let me down a little bit, but I still really enjoyed it, guys. I mean, this is still a very enjoyable film. Again, it's engaging despite me not having much emotional investment into much. Um, but the character interactions throughout the film are compelling enough, and the suspense and action sequences are really, really great. That to me is pretty much the biggest compliment I can give this film. The opening suspense sequence is fucking great. There's an action fight sequence like in the middle of this movie that is really great. And just overall, those are the reasons why I found this film to be effective and enjoyable. Um, I guess I just wish there was a better screenplay. The screenplay isn't terrible, but it is a bit simplistic. And with a film like this, with films like this already have been done like a lot, you kind of want this film to elevate its material and do something more with it. But it really doesn't, in my opinion. But that's it. I think I've rambled enough. Again, this is just a raw review, no editing or anything. I'm just kind of scatterbrained a little bit. So that being said, I think it's time to give a rating. I'll give The Killer a solid 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it. I think it's a pretty good movie. It was a little bit disappointing in certain areas, but at least it wasn't boring. I can't in good faith call this movie boring because it's really not. Um, so yeah, that's all I'll say, guys. I'm planning to see Anatomy of a Fall this week, and I'm also planning to go Criterion shopping this week. So stay tuned for those videos. And also, again, I'm going to shield my film The Red Egg. If you have not seen my short film The Red Egg, please watch it and give me some feedback. It's also on Letterboxd if you want to rate and review it. It's only going to be on YouTube for probably another week, and I'm going to take it down. But that's about it. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you really enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.